My tip is to be yourself and be a person first and a real estate agent second. People will identify with that and things will happen for the right reasons. If you try to be not who you are and a real estate agent first, you'll get found out.
You're listening to Elevate, the official podcast of elite agent for real estate industry sales professionals, property managers and leaders. With thanks to our partner Connect Now, Elevate brings you the best tools, thinking and strategies to elevate your results. To download your written action guide from this podcast containing extra tips, links and shortcuts, visit eliteagentelevate.com. And for more information about how Connect Now can make moving easier on your clients, visit connectnow.com.au. Here is your host, Samantha McLean.
Welcome to another episode of the Elevate podcast, where we delve into some of the most interesting minds in business and in real estate for the very best tips and strategies for you to implement to elevate your business. I'm Samantha McLean, editor of Elite Agent and host of this week's show. Joining me today is the Potts Point and Sydney's eastern suburbs go-to agent who has attained over $1.6 billion in residential sales over 2 decades and is a mentor to many in the industry. So it's my great pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Jason Boon.
Thanks, Samantha. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It looks lovely and bright and sunny over there in Potts Point. It's a nice day.
It is a nice day. Yeah, no, I'm actually at home. So Potts Point's the office, but I'm in Bronte right now. So.
Oh, okay. Nice and close to the beach.
Yeah, pretty close to the beach, yeah.
I heard that you used to surf some pretty big waves over in Hawaii. Surfing's always been your first love, hasn't it?
I sort of grew up on the beaches of Bronte and Tamarama and Bondi. And it's where my parents are from. And I grew up in the surf club and the nippers and surfing a Kool-Aid after I did nippers on Sunday and that sort of thing. Don't know about big waves. I mean, I surfed some big waves in Fiji and Hawaii, but I was never like charging the big waves that the guys do now. But, I had my fair share of good surfs.
They terrify me. I look at them
they're
and I think,
another level now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think how do they do that?
Now that I watch them, they're just taking it the bar higher and higher. So.
Crazy. A bit like real estate, yeah?
Kind of. They don't get off land.
A little bird told me that you were in quite a few advertising campaigns when you were younger too, for like Coca-Cola
Look, yeah, I was. My mother used to put me in an agency in North Bondi called Joan Gibson's Agent, who just passed away a couple of days ago. So God bless her soul. She was an amazing influence and positive influence on my life. And I used to do a few commercials and Home and Away and a few other things with her sons. And yeah.
Amazing.
Interesting times, Coca-Cola ads and things like that.
So eventually you must have fallen into real estate. Did you choose real estate or did real estate choose you?
Actually, the reason I ended up in real estate is I left school and I was kind of just surfing and bumming around. And one of my brother's friends was working in a property management role in Lang & Simmons in Paddington, actually. A guy called Bernard McGrath, who is not related to John McGrath, but his name's Bernie McGrath. He had a real estate agency in Oxford Street, little small agency there, and couldn't do anything else. So I didn't have any degrees or was either a trade or surf. And he invited me to come and work as his assistant for a couple of weekends. And then eventually I got a property management role there and leasing role with Lang & Simmons in Paddington. But Samantha, to be completely honest, I didn't know what I was going to do. It wasn't like I was after real estate. I just happened to be talking to him and he mentioned, would I like to come along, chuck a suit on and help him out? I thought I was just doing it for 6 months.
Yeah, like a lot of people.
Yeah. I didn't wake up and say, hey, I'm going to be a real estate agent. I was sort of like, I'm not much good at reading and writing in the English language, so maybe I'll do real estate.
I think a lot of people have started the same way, but what did that first role teach you that you still carry to this day?
You know, what it did teach me is I sort of just learned how to talk to people, show property, be a bit more consistent with what I was doing. I was sort of all over the place at that age and gave me a little bit of stability. Also, the guy I worked for, Bernard McGrath, and another guy that was there at the time, a guy called David Sheehy, I mean, they were just good guys. And I sort of learned a lot about work from them as well. Not so much in the real estate world, but just I was sort of that young, impressionable, and I kind of liked real estate because it allowed me to go surfing, hang out with my mates and get some sort of income in those days. And I was only sort of 19 at the time. But Bernard was a great boss. He was a great guy. He just allowed me to sort of be myself at that time. There are different situations and different jobs that I got into that didn't provide me with that, but it was a good example.
Let's talk about that. Where did you go from property management? You went to McGrath next, didn't you?
Yeah, I bounced around a little bit. I worked for John Gordon at LJ Hooker in Bondi Beach, Bondi Junction. He was a great man. I enjoyed working for him. I ended up working for John McGrath as a commercial and sales, and started to make a bit of money in those days, and still was young and thought I was bulletproof, and started to misbehave a little bit. Eventually John probably let me go a couple of times. I keep saying he sacked me, which is probably true, just a bit of a harsher word. But yeah, I was probably with John maybe 7 years. Great training, good man to work for. A lot of fantastic people have come through his company, or have at least had some sort of training through McGrath's or through John even. I used to travel around with John in the car while he was doing auctions, listen to his tone of voice, what he'd do, all that sort of thing. So I was privy to that way back in the early days. I was just a bit loose, as well as a good real estate agent. So he had to let me go a couple of times. I think the third time I thought he was going to sack me, and I left. So he didn't get 3 strikes.
Yeah, well, obviously he saw the potential in you because you are a go-to agent now. You've sold billions in property. So tell me a little bit about your business now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I got older, I got mature and made mistakes, and I learned from them. And I ended up working with a guy I went to school with, a guy called Andrew Hoggett, and another guy that I grew up with in the eastern suburbs called Greg McKinley. And so I'm in partnership with those 2 guys now. We have a much bigger business. We've been in the area for close to 25, 30 years now, and got a large rent roll and a good handful of 6 or 7 really good agents. We don't want to grow any much more than that. We're happy with what we are, and we provide a really good local service to the area. We've become specialists in these sorts of areas: Potts Point, Elizabeth Bay, Darling Point, Surrey Hills, Darlinghurst, or just around that inner city fringe. And I also sell around the beaches for people that I've grown up with or just want me specifically. But the business has evolved. There's probably close to 45 staff, and we've got loyalty to each other. We get along. Yeah, it's a really rare business in the sense we've known each other all our lives, and we've worked together all our lives. And it was at the time that I sort of sorted myself up and went back to real estate in my late 20s and 30s. I was trying to sort of find my feet. He was the only one that gave me a job. So it was kind of meant to happen. I wasn't, again, looking to work there. It was the only one that gave me a job.
Yeah, sometimes fate brings people together.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I didn't have a car. I sort of lost most things in the late 20s. I was starting from scratch again, and I think that was the best thing. That was probably a good grounding.
Yeah, amazing. And I was having a look at your blog this morning, actually. Like you just mentioned hyperlocal in terms of Potts Point, Elizabeth Bay, Darling Point. And there's some fantastic stories on your blog about different local places in the area.
Yeah, I really like all that stuff. There's a couple of women that I sourced out when I first was getting back into that area 20 odd years ago, and I like the history. Potts Point, Elizabeth Bay, Kings Cross has an amazing history to it because it's transformed its face many times, and a lot of areas have. I mean, if you look at places like Coogee or Maroubra now, or anywhere, wherever you're from, you see change, and I think change is important to recognise. And also history, because you're promoting an area. You're not just selling a piece of real estate in that area. You're selling the lifestyle. You're selling the area. You're selling what else it provides. So therefore, if you understand your area and you promote it or write about it or research it, you become a specialist in that area, not just for real estate, more about what you're selling that comes along with it, the pool, the beach, the whatever, restaurants in the area, the Soho lifestyle. I think it's really important to sort of position yourself as someone that is respectful and involved and engulfed in the area and selling real estate there. And that's what that article does each week.
Was it year 2000 where Sydney Harbour Bridge, the fireworks famous, had Eternity on it?
So I give them the idea. I'm not much of a writer. I have ghostwriters for it, to be honest, Samantha. But I give them the ideas and some points I know about it, and they go about and research it, and then I read them, and we do it that way. That was a good one. Yeah. Look, I mean, there was an amazing one done about the Beatles when they came to, they stayed in Potts Point. So many different shades, many different colours. I get people dropping in stuff to me. We've got a couple of crazy cockies in the area, and they're ripping cars apart. I had to laugh. I was ripping one of my competitor's car apart in Victoria Street at Ray White's car apart the other day. I said, just video it for fun and send it to him. But this lady took this whole series of shots in the history of cockies and where they came. Like, I know it's a bit silly, but, they get involved. They get a part of you. I've got an old guy in the area who sends me articles of a building that he was involved with building back in the 60s and 70s, stuff like that. Old restaurants in the area, old theatres in the area. And they all get involved. We've got about 18,000 on that site. So it's evolved over 20 years.
Look, I can remember when I was young, I walked into the Bayswater Brasserie and there's Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise standing there.
It's got that colourful history to it. I think it warrants that type of site or website. And there is a lot, you've got the saffrons and you've got the history and the cross and you've got the parks. And it used to be called Hobbs Nobbsville.
Why is that?
Before the war, which was meaning that it was just sort of like an affluent place to go to get your suits tailored and your shoes shined, and you do a bit of gambling because they had tea houses, and then go to the races. Yeah, so there's a lot of history there. I could go on forever.
Yeah, no, I probably could too. I remember as a kid always reading stories about the Siebel Townhouse and all the celebrities that used to stay there. And
yeah, that's now a block of units called Encore.
Amazing. So is there a memorable property that you've sold in the area? What stands out to you?
The area is a lot of older style real estate, sort of anywhere from 1900, late 18s, and then up to the modern. You just mentioned the Siebel Townhouse is now an apartment block. The old Nico Hotel, the Manhattan Hotel, all these hotels have recently changed into in the last 20 years. So I've had the most success out of a building called Pomeroy and another building called Icon, and I enjoy selling in them because I know them really well. But I don't have a favourite anymore. Like, I enjoy the older style real estate as well. I found it hard to get into the older style real estate, but that eventually happened 10 or so years ago. I have some beautiful old buildings here like Manor, Wilford Gardens, Corinthia, Carisbrook, all of these Darnley Hall, beautiful old ballrooms. So I've got some great properties, but I also enjoyed probably a building called Icon the most because I've sold probably 80% of it.
What is it about that building?
It's convenience. Believe it or not, convenience is becoming a pretty important word in my area. So it's in Macleay Street, which is almost like the beachfront if you were on the beach. It's got parking. It's got views both ways to the harbour, views to the heads, views all the way to the city. It's a very sort of mainstream, basic block, nicely done, and is right in the middle of Potts Point. So therefore, you just walk out, don't use your car. Many elevators that support it, great, really well run. 40 visitor car space, just a really convenient block of good size apartments with great views and providing every amenity, concierge, pool, sauna, parking. It's a really good way of living and being in the middle of straight to the airport, straight to the city. And it's almost in the middle of a triangular city. So that's probably one of my favourites.
Sounds amazing. And that's a bit of a trend at the moment, isn't it? When you go and live somewhere like that, everything is there for you, isn't it? And it's deliberate now that it's quite convenient with restaurants and hair salons. And
yeah, give you that Soho feeling up there. And that's our closest thing to it, London or New York.
With the older properties, what sort of marketing strategies do you use to take them to market to attract the most number of people to them?
I don't have one way, Samantha. At the moment, I've learned over the years that there's never one way to sell a property. Sometimes I'll have buyers for it straight away. Sometimes I have buyers in the building. Sometimes I'll be working buyers of other properties. Sometimes it needs to go to market, auction, expressions of interest. I don't believe there's one way anymore. I used to know that we would train it. But look, at the end of the day, it's almost like moving with what the property that you've got at the time. Sometimes I may have sold an apartment prior to that, similar, 6 months ago, and I've got a whole array of buyers I can take through. So I could do it off market. Sometimes it requires to go to market and great shots and view because it's got an incredible nighttime view of the bridge. So I sort of play what's in front of me these days. I don't have a set way. I know there's formulas and systems to getting property sold quickly, but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in selling well for a client and having a great relationship as opposed to conditioning and getting it sold as quickly as possible. It's just not my bag. I know there's a lot of that going on, but it's not for me. A lot of training around that too.
Yeah, interesting. You just mentioned the term off market there as well, which is an interesting one, particularly around the eastern suburbs. Have you seen a trend towards that at all?
So what happens when you become specialised in an area, you can play chess. So if anyone wants my area, they generally now, 80% of them will come to me so I can just place people in properties. Sometimes it's about finding the right property, not so much whether it's the price that's a concern. They just are retiring to Potts Point or moving laterally or coming down into Potts Point. So could be an end game, could be because of the schools near, but like whatever the circumstances are, you can play around with what you've got and just take your right arm property and your left arm and put them together. That can be done off market. It's not rocket science, And by being in one area for a long period of time, you give yourself every opportunity to do that. I'm sure there's a lot of agents out there that do it today. I'm just obviously speaking about it now. And then there's other ones that just definitely need that program or that marketing or that auction or that expressions of interest because of the views or because I think there'll be a lot of competition and we may need that. So it's almost like a halfback playing what's in front of him at the time as opposed to thinking it through too much. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
yeah, definitely. I mean, look, one size doesn't fit all these days. I know there are some agents out there that have still got a set way that they'll do things and then
If it's auction, I'll do it and it needs it. That's probably 50% of the time. If it's expressions of interest, I'll suggest that. And sometimes it's just off market and I've got the buyer and I'll pay more than what I think I can get in competition. Again, just a living, breathing organism, Samantha, that you just decide what works for the client at the time and what's going on in the market, what's going on around you. There's a lot of determining factors as opposed to just pushing them into your hole and doing what you want.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we'll see more of.
It has to be, yeah. You're going to have to adjust with what's going on, yeah.
Speaking of what's going on, that was actually going to be my next question. So how has COVID-19 affected your business at all or affected buying and selling real estate in your area?
So without sounding arrogant, during the lockdown or the change that happened a couple of months or 3 months or so ago, I had one of my best months ever in real estate. I've got to be careful about how I put this, but the reality is, surprisingly, I stopped doing opens and started doing private appointments. Now, I'd like to gloss that up for you and make it sound really nice, but I'm telling you, that's without any bullshit. That's as clear as day. I just did private appointments and I did lots of them. And I showed lots of real estate and I did it according to COVID and making sure I was looking after the interests of the owner or the tenant that was there and the buyer. And I was just working with people that wanted to sell and people that wanted to buy. And I ended up having an incredible couple of months. So something in that, I think, instead of just opening up houses on weekends and Thursdays. So I wasn't greatly affected. Prices have changed a little bit in some areas and in others, the good real estate. So real estate that is sort of always in demand, it hasn't really changed much in my area.
A lot of agents said to me that they actually enjoyed going back to basics a bit, the one-on-one conversations.
I wouldn't say I enjoyed it in the beginning. I'd be lying if I said I did. I did enjoy it once I got into the groove. Change for anyone is something that they have to deal with. I'm not great all the time with change, but I just got on with it and it was there and I understood I wanted the right decisions to be made with the government and what was going on in our world. But in front of my face, there's a market and then there's what goes on in front of you, which is a simple thing called supply and demand. So if you can focus on just simply what supply and demand is going on right in front of your face, regardless of 9/11, coronavirus, or whatever else is going on in the world, there is that simplistic, basic, raw supply and demand concept that's been around for thousands of years. And so when you just focus on that and do the basic things, which is talk to people, open up doors, do buyer appointments, take phone calls, answer things, facilitate conversations, listen, talk, it works.
Yeah, it's like instead of worrying about all the noise going on out here, keep your eyes on your own paper. Let's talk about your day at the moment, because I'm sure a lot of agents would be keen to hear things about how you manage work-life balance and stuff like that. So what does a normal day look like for you at the moment?
Normal day for me is I get up really early. I'm sort of a 4:30, 5 o'clock rise, and not because I want to impress anyone, it's just my thing. I've been doing that all my life. And have a coffee, go for a surf, take the dog for a walk. I'll just do whatever blows. I mean, if the surf's up, I'll surf first up, or I'll have a swim or a walk. There's no rhyme or reason, or I train with a mate of mine sometimes who surfs, but if there's no waves, we get together. Come home, talk to the kids, wife, pat the dog, try and be a pretty basic good person if I can. Not always easy. And then get off to work. I'm probably at work 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, anywhere in there. There's no real set time. Always on the phones, always talking in the mornings, and then probably doing a lot of my appointments in the afternoon. I don't work late. I'm not an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock worker or a 7 o'clock worker. If I can get out of there by 5:30 or 6:30, I'm in that range. Obviously, that changes with auctions and some late appointments that you've got to do, but I want to get home to my family. And daylight saving, I want to get home and have a second surf or do something. Truth be known, if there's an hour in the day where I've got to come back to work late, I might sneak up and have a wave. But I'm consistent. I'm a real talker. I talk all the time, phone people, physically meet people, coffees, build relationships. I'm a real basic real estate agent. I'd like to give you some magic, but there isn't much other than, I know how to talk with people, communicate, do the best I can and try and be the best person I can. And then hopefully real estate will follow in the right direction. As they say, life becomes as it's lived. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this industry, but you just want to check on how you're living. You might actually work out how you're going in real estate.
That's good advice. If you were juggling priorities at any point during the day, what do you consider to be your absolute non-negotiables?
As far as just real estate?
Anything.
Non-negotiable means I have to get in the water 3 or 4 times a week.
Yep.
I really need to get to football for my son. I just love watching him play. He loves the game. A very, very big non-negotiable for me is I just cannot understand hiding behind emails or texts. I have to make phone calls and meet people. They're non-negotiables. Texting and an email has its place, but as I said, it has its place and that's it. So the rest of it is, do you want to meet and talk? Would you like to meet me for a coffee? Can I come to your place? Can I go do this? Do you want to see this place? You email me, I'll pick up your phone. I did it, actually. I did do that with Anna. She texted me, I'll pick up the phone and rang it straight away. I need to feel, hear, touch, listen, identify, understand that I've been down this road before.
I think there's too much email these days. Some people treat their inboxes, I think, as de facto to-do lists.
Yeah, I still haven't found out where the inbox is, but I'll get there. Anne can look after that for me.
Yeah, probably wise that you stay out of it.
I get these pieces of paper put on my desk that this is an email. I know they're coming through the computer.
What advice would you give to younger agents that are just starting out their career in real estate? Or alternately, what's the worst advice you've ever heard?
When it's too much advice, I feel there isn't a perfect walk or there isn't a perfect advice here. It's just go for the walk or just listen to advice, many of it. Little bits of everyone. There's places to listen to everyone and taking out what you want from someone. Visualising is really important when you're looking at people and watching them work or listening to their tone or visualise kicking a soccer ball or a football and you do it the same way eventually. I think that's really important. So the answer to that question, Samantha, is to be around people that you can learn from, not just in real estate, in many, many other levels. And I wouldn't be in a hurry. If it's going to become a part of your life, then that's fine. But if it's going to be a career and you're in a hurry, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people come in and come out with expectations that probably aren't met. So make it a part of your life. Align yourself with some good people. Don't be in a hurry. Believe me, it'll take care of itself if you do the next right thing in this industry. It really will. There's just too much people trying to stick a square peg into a round hole.
What does the next 12 months look like for Jason Boon and his team?
So I've been with Jeff Cox and Anne Humphreys. Anne's been about 16 years and Jeff has been, I don't even know now, maybe 17, 18 years. So for me, I've really employed some amazing people and developed them into good agents first. So people first, where they've become later on has been important for me. I need loyalty. I thrive to have those sorts of people around me because I've got shortfalls and I need them around me. Okay, so for me, it's one of the biggest things in my life is to have stability and loyalty with my staff, and they've been there, both of them, for a long time. I've just put a new guy on for the first time, but he's been waiting for 8 years. So Jossie's just started, and right now I want to do, and this is going to sound really basic, but I want to do more of the same. I don't want to change or reinvent the wheel. I want to work out to do more of the same, a little bit more consistently, Samantha. So I don't have an ebbs and flows sort of system now. I actually sell quite well, and when I'm listing, I've got people helping me selling, and then I'm also selling. So I've actually got a nice flow where I don't have peaks and troughs. So that has just been achieved in the last 12 months. After all this time of doing real estate, I've sort of worked it out a bit, and I want more of the same. So I need to actually discover how the next 12 months can be more of the same. I feel like it's working. I haven't got the complete answer yet of how to do that. I think it's being more present every day. It's
interesting that you say you just hired someone new who's been waiting for 8 years.
He's been working in the company.
Oh, okay. And I was going to say, you've got a very established team. How do you integrate someone new into that team?
Do you know, I don't need him to do too much. I know his personality meets with me. He reminds me a little bit of myself when I was younger, but he gets along with Anne. Actually, Anne thinks he's really good looking. So Jeff and him are really good mates. He's a good kid. He's not got a lot of ego behind him. He's a humble guy. He's willing just to put in the yards. He's just going to hang around and be the next guy off the bench. And he's been with us for 8 years working in other parts of the business. So we know what to expect from him. I don't want him in there reinventing the wheel. I just really want him to be a part of the team for the first 12 months. He will evolve. He's got everything he needs, all the skills he needs to be good at this job. And it's really important for me because we haven't really clicked in energy, the three of us. And it's been going for 18 years. So we kind of know what the other one's doing. And Jeff and I put out 19 photos the other day of property. And I said, I'm going to write down 2 of the shots that are going to be the main shots. You write down 2 or put them on paper, see how well we know each other. Well, we got both of them. So it's kind of eerie now. Both chose the same 2.
Yeah, it's almost like being in a long marriage, right?
Yes, it does.
If there was any advice you could give to your younger self, what would it be?
I'd teach him how to handle fear. That would be what I'd give.
Is there something particularly behind that, or?
Yeah, the energy of what I was when I was younger. I just didn't know who I was. I had a good soul. Nothing's changed in that respect. I've always known that that's there, but I made a lot of mistakes, Samantha.
Yeah.
And I think I made them through fear or through low self-esteem but large ego. So it took me a while to level those out a bit and make mistakes. But then again, those mistakes were meant to be made. So I don't know, that's a hard one. I think just the pain that I went through growing up, like everyone does, nothing out of the ordinary, but just, maybe teaching him about that. It's not real. It's just part of growing. I thought it was real back then, but really, it's just a bit like Simpsons, really.
It's just like a big wave, really.
I'm going to take you surfing soon.
Yeah. Oh, God. That's something I'm very afraid of. Well, Jason, it's been amazing getting to know you a little bit better today, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with our audience. If there was one thing that you'd like them to remember, what would it be?
Probably getting a bit tired of this. My tip is to be yourself and be a person first and a real estate agent second. People will identify with that and things will happen for the right reasons. If you try to be not who you are and a real estate agent first, you'll get found out.
Yeah, amazing. Good advice. Jason Boon, thank you so much.
Thanks, Samantha.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Elevate with thanks to connectnow.com.au. Don't forget to download your written action guide from this podcast containing extra tips, links and shortcuts. Visit eliteagentelevate.com.